Hi guys, welcome to my coffee show. My name is Jack and today we are playing with two Orea V4. Today we're going to compare my wide Orea V4 with my narrow Orea V4. I will talk about similarities and differences between those two brewers. We're going to do some pour overs. We will talk about the flavor notes, differences in the flavor notes, and by the end, together we try to figure out which one is better for you. Definitely an exciting video, so all you need to do is just click like and enjoy. If you're regular to this channel, you know I'm a big fan of Orea products. I've been poking them for the last few months and eventually they responded to my emails. Although they couldn't send us any products here, but they offer me a very generous discount. Thank you very much, Orea. That's why I was able to buy that narrow Orea and do a video for you. Just quickly, if you're not familiar with the Orea, I will be checking the website as we speak. Orea V4 is not a flat bottom brewer. No, it is a system, yes. So they evolved, let's evolve again, let's change everything. We already great, we can make even better. You might heard about Orea V3, you might even heard about Orea V3 MK2, a very similar brewer as well. But now we have that modular system. Each of those brewers come in the paper box like so, which looks okay. Although I miss those times where Orea brewers were packed nicely in the shiny box. But maybe this one is better for the planet. They say on their website how great they are for the planet for making those plastic things. If I was so ecologically conscious, maybe I would go for a glass Orea instead. Each of those brewers, they come with 4 different attachments, 4 different bottoms. Each of those bottoms, they change the way the water penetrates the coffee, they change the way the water bypasses the coffee and so on, and that can influence the flavor notes. I have a video about Orea V4 where I compare all those bottoms, all those attachments, and I have to say, yes, there is a difference. You can detect the difference between each of those attachments. Obvious difference is a different time of extraction depending on which bottom you choose. Each of those brewers come with that fast attachment, which is my favorite. It comes with that open hole bottom, very similar to glass Orea. It comes with this attachment, which is pretty much exactly the same as the one that you get with Orea V3 MK2, but something that is very interesting, and I still haven't explored it that much yet, is this apex attachment. Apex attachment can change this flat bottom brewer into something kind of in between flat bottom brewer and V60. When you put them side by side, 2 obvious differences will be the size. Narrow Orea, the walls are steeper and the size is smaller. Total capacity here I will be up to 28 grams, while there is 36 grams on the wider Orea. Outside of the brewer, there is a texture to that. The inside is very smooth. The collar in both cases is made out of metal. The collar, by the way, is exactly the same between those 2 brewers, but the bottoms are slightly different. I mean, the geometry, it's pretty much the same, but the sizes are different. Although technically you could interchange them between narrow and wide version, you would not get that seamless connection and therefore it is not recommended. By the way, why would you do that? Why would you try to swap the attachments if you have 2 of those brewers? Well, the reason is, I checked on the website recently and you are able to buy narrow Orea with just 1 attachment. You pay $34.99 while you pay $49.99 if you buy them with all 4 attachments. If you want to buy the attachments separately, by the way, each one would cost you $9.99. I think if you only want 1 attachment, I don't really see a point of buying Orea V4. Maybe try to find used Orea V3 and stick with that. Unfortunately, they don't make white Orea V4 with 1 attachment, or at least they don't sell it yet. And here I would actually see the point, because if you already have Orea V3, maybe you want to try that bigger geometry, but you don't want to spend that money. Now, on the website, they promise us 0 bullshit. But talking about the bullshit, one thing caught my eye, and they say here about how difficult it was to produce that brewer. So they say here it was almost an impossible design. Almost impossible design. Just imagine 21st century computers, AIs, but to make things out of plastic, well, almost impossible. Maybe because they don't use plastic, they use a polyprop something, and it is BPA free. Well, I'm not really sure what BPA is, but what if I want BPA? in my brewer. They take away our choices, they take away our freedoms, they are eating our pets. I tell you something, when I become a president, I will build a wall made out of BPA. As you can see, I'm already slightly over caffeinated. Each of those brewers can fit a whole variety of different filters. You can use Kalita filters. If you're crazy enough, you can even go for those very fast, very expensive filters from Orea. There are a few other cheaper options. Now, although you don't have to, you may want to also buy a negotiator. You get two sizes of negotiators. One for the narrow, you can see one for the wide, obviously different geometry. I bought those two negotiators at the different times. So this is the box for the negotiator for the wide Orea, and you can see it is just a plain box. The negotiator for the narrow Orea looks a bit better, but the wide negotiator, it came with the pouch. Narrow negotiator, well, it was just wrapped in a paper. Because this is a modular system, they also come with two attachments. At the very beginning, those negotiators, they were coming with the magnetically attached tips, but they changed it. Apparently there were some flaws in the design. If you watched my previous video about that negotiator, I criticized them for not changing the pictures on the website. They changed it now, so maybe they listen, maybe they watch to this channel. The only reason you would use those two attachments is if you want to brew using that apex bottom. And with the help of those two, you can negotiate flat filter. It makes it kind of in a V shape. You get two different tips for the negotiators, so apparently they changed the way the coffee penetrates, they changed slightly the flavor notes. And there is a big difference between those tips for the narrow and wide Orea, and you cannot interchange them. I don't know, sometimes I like to use this negotiator. Well, I use it because I bought it, but sometimes I think I could do the same, just pushing the filter with my hands. For V4 with that apex attachment, you can also use V60 filters. You would have to bend them slightly to the shape, to the geometry of the brewer, but here you would probably go for the wide Orea V4. For the narrow Orea, the tip is slightly too long. It does not fit as nicely. For today's video, I will be using those brewers with this fast attachment. As they say on the website, and I have to agree, Orea V4, the narrow version, it's faster. They say 30 seconds faster with the same grind settings, the same brew style, and I have to agree, it's pretty much 30 seconds difference. But the most important here, as we always say, is the taste of the coffee. For most of my tests, I was using this coffee from Pelicano Coffee Roast, this coffee from Nicaragua. But for today, special video, special viewers, I have a special coffee for you. This is the coffee that has been roasted in Poland from Polish roastery Mamem. I struggle a bit with this coffee. I struggle to develop the flavor notes. Here, just a quick tip. If you feel like a coffee is slightly under extracted, you may grind a bit finer to extend the extraction. You may also increase the water temperature by, let's say, 2 degrees. Let me brew some coffee and then I will take you through the flavor notes and differences in the flavor notes. For my tests, I try to dial them into the same brew time, about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm using the F83V with SSP multi-purpose burst. I'm on 800 RPMs. Cheers. Now, first of all, this coffee, and it wasn't a cheap coffee. In fact, I paid 100 Polish zloty, which is about 20 pounds, so that makes it a relatively expensive bag of coffee. Very, very quiet flavor notes. I can get some grapes. Grapefruit, very difficult to get. The orange blossoms, not really. I went for it today for one particular reason, which I will share with you. Overall, if we take into account all my other tests, narrow Orea, it can give you more fruity, juicy sourness. That's the main difference between those two. Wider Orea tends to round up the flavor notes. You get more balance here and possibly more sweetness. Slightly more body, although it's not always that obvious. Personally, I like them both, and I will come back to which one I would recommend and why. With the coffee that I brewed today, it was the same in my rehearsals. Once dialed into the same time of extraction, I struggle really to find the differences. So the reason I went for this coffee, because I wanted to prove to myself and I wanted to share with you something, that with certain coffees, you won't find that much of the difference in the flavor notes. So guys, if you are still here, definitely click like, consider subscribing to the channel, plenty more things coming. We are getting new brewer to review, should be with me soon, something that may surprise you. We will probably get few more gadgets from MHW3 Bomber. So, Orea V4, narrow and wide. First of all, whichever you choose, you should be happy. Both of them are very good. Well, I love flat bottom brewers. Yes, you can get more sharpness when you use V60 sometimes, but for me, flat bottom brewers are easier. The reason I went for that wide Orea V4 initially is because I own two other Oreas which are of very similar geometry as that narrow Orea V4. You can even use the same negotiator here, so if you already have negotiator for Orea V3, you might not need negotiator for Orea V4. The only difference is that you won't be able to negotiate for the apex attachment. If you want to use V60 filters, the wide Orea seems to be a better choice than the narrow Orea. What if you never had any Orea and this will be your first brewer? Choose by the flavor notes that I mentioned. If you want more juiciness and sourness, you go for the narrow one. If you want more sweetness and balance, you go for the wide one. You may argue with me here on that, but I think wide one is slightly more user-friendly if you're a beginner, because it's slower, because the opening is wider, so it is slightly easier to pour the water there. I might be wrong on that, let me know in the comments. I wouldn't go for the narrow Orea with just one attachment. As I said, this is a modular system and you have lots of fun by playing with those modules. Would I recommend to go for both of them? Well, as long as you don't run a YouTube channel, I would say no, just buy one of them. As I proved with today's brew, the differences in the taste might not be always as obvious. Last interesting bit here is lots of professional baristas, coffee champions, they tend to use the narrow Orea more often than the wide one. Maybe they have a point here. Who am I to argue with coffee masters? So it's something that you need to consider as well. Now in the comments, please let me know, do you use flat bottom brewers? Have you tried any Orea? Maybe you have a very interesting recipe you would like me to try. But for today, thank you very much for watching. My name is Jack, this is my coffee show, and hopefully I will see you soon. Thank you, bye!